Okay, this grill, although has never been restored before, which is a good thing, even though it has heavy pitting, nobody has plated it before, which is nobody has lost the detail in the front bars and in the areas that are crucial to make a concourse quality grill upon completion or restoration. There is 21 vertical bars and there is 16 horizontal bars. There's also an outer shell, and there's also decorative caps at the end which mount up to the fenders. It is also put together with a multitude of screws. Every piece comes apart individually. Like a jigsaw puzzle, it'll be quite a bit of work to take apart and quite a bit of work to put back together. We are going to show you what the finishing touch is all about during the restoration of this particular project. I'm just going to show you a little bit more in depth of the different areas and the pitting that's in the areas. You can tell as it gets towards the bottom, it is much heavier pitted. The other unique thing about this grill is that everything is plated, the vertical and horizontal bars, and also the only part that is painted are these decorative end caps because they're painted body color. Also note that there's issues like this where it's cracked in a couple of different spots. That's just due to the magnitude of the piece. It probably weighs about 65 pounds. And of course, if it gets jostled around, it's going to break. But when you put it all together, it's one solid piece. But apart, all these vertical bars and horizontal bars are very flimsy and very fragile and have to be handled with care in order to do correctly. There's also some damage that the customer has marked here with their X's where it has bumped into the garage or garage bench or something of that nature. Tomorrow we will start archiving the taking apart of the grill and also the pneumatic numbering system we will have to use to ensure that we get everything back together. The difficult part about this grill is that we have to not only take it apart and put it back together, but we also have to restore all the pieces to concourse quality, which requires more sanding than does plating. Because this part cannot take a lot of plating. If not, it'll never go back together. You have to remember when the factory built it, they had brand new stuff to work with, and they only gave it a light polish, light surface, light polish, and then light plating. For the reason that it's not in very good condition at the moment. Although a nice dry core surely needs the finishing touch. Okay, we're in the process of taking out the vertical bars. There's brackets that we have here that held the vertical bars into place. Now they're getting ready to come out. You can see all the top bars have been removed. All the vertical bars have been removed. And now we're down to the lower area, which is a complete area all by itself. There's 2 screws holding it on the side, and then there's 4 set screws across the bottom, and then of course this plate that's holding those vertical bars. So unlike the rest of them went into the actual frame where you can see the holes, and that's what held together, along with the holes that held into the center. This entire lower unit now is going to come out as one piece. And then it'll be disassembled from there and then reassembled upon completion and then put back into the outer shell. Also note that the shell has been broken in 3 different spots, got 3 breaks in it. Of course, the whole piece was holding it together, and that's why you couldn't tell it was broken before, although we knew it was broken. And now you can see that the lower grill section comes out at one piece. So we will have to go ahead and reassemble it upon completion before we put it back into the grill, because it has a different kind of side plate which is screwed and put together exactly the same way. But the fact is we got to put all this assembly back together first and then put it back into the outer surround, which I just showed you earlier, that's broken into 3 different pieces. And then we'll be able to start the top grill bar reassembly after that. Starting to have a whole bunch of pieces now that things starting to come apart. Also note, these are the top grill bars that have come apart. They've all been marked with a number, as you can tell, so we know we start at the top. Also note that once we get them out of there, how poor the condition of them are. and also the fact that they're very weak inside that area, so we have to make a jig up for them so they don't get damaged or cracked, because once you crack 1.5, you give yourself a whole lot more work in order to restore the bar correctly. So we'll have to make a jig for them so we can jig them up so they won't be so fragile while we're trying to surface and grind and polish these parts. And now you get to see some of the challenges of the grill. This is the outer surround after I took it out of the part, or took the center bars out. It was broken 3 spots. We will have to TIG weld these pieces back together, and this is old die cast, so very difficult to do. And hopefully the frame won't break while we're doing this process in any other spots. It also is very important that we get it square and straight so the vertical and horizontal bars fit together correctly, due to the fact this thing has an extremely tight fit upon completion of restoration. Okay, grill is now completely disassembled. There's all the horizontal bars, there's the details, there's the grill surround with the 3 broken parts. There's some backer plates in order to put it together. And then over here are the stacks of vertical bars that all needed restored. So now everything is completely taken apart. All the hardware has been identified and bagged, so we know where it all goes back in, replace the bad stuff. We're now ready to start the stripping and the restoration of the process. Okay, now after we stripped the parts, I fabricated a few brackets for every individual horizontal bar so they won't get broken during the restoration. This piece is very fragile in the center, and as you try to work on it in order to take the pitting out and repair it, it requires pressure, and in past experiences we've had them break in the center, which makes for a lot more work trying to put them back together and make them strong. The bracketing for the 21 bars took about 4 hours to fabricate, but the fact is that's a lot easier than trying to repair 2 pieces and making it one again, due to the fact that this die cast is very corroded and very lightweight and very difficult to TIG weld onto. We can TIG weld die cast, which makes it strong, but you have a lot of heat and you have a lot of other issues. We're now in the processing of repairing the vertical bars. You can see the little welded area there where the crack was, the bracket. You can also see the pick marks on the back side where the part has been brought up. Flip it around for me. It's also been light filed on the top. You can see all the pitting that's in the part. Robert's got the top filed flat and straight. Now he'll start his grinding process. Go ahead and file it a little bit. What we do is we file the part flat because a grinder is only going to follow the part itself. So you got to make the part flat first, and then after he gets it flat, then he'll go after grinding the pits out of the part. Okay, we got a little more bar work going on here. You can see that we got all the pits out that we could, and now we drilled and opened up all the bad porosity spots on this grill. You can see the strike only Prep L written on there. Prep L is a special cleaning process that won't over clean this really vintage cruddy die cast. It's a very difficult thing to plate without pitting, or without blistering, I'm sorry, because the blistering is a real problem for the reason you got all these pits, and for the reason these things have fallen apart, and now for the reason we got all these holes drilled in them and all these issues in trying during the restoration. It doesn't over clean the zinc die cast material, which allows the blistering to be lessened and the problems to be less. So this is 3 more bars that are in the process being ready to get plated. We got to get this grill together for this customer. He has been very patient, but we got to get the thing finished. Okay, here's our grill. We welded it all back together, made a stiffening board to give it some support. Obviously, this is what we photographed earlier, has broken to 4 pieces, right, Robert? Right. Yeah, they're welded back together with zinc die cast rod. Everything is welded back together when you need strength in zinc die cast rod, which is a very difficult rod to weld with. So as you can see now, we got it all squared back up. We got all the multiple pieces welded back together. And now we'll do a little bit of check fitting to make sure that the vertical bars and the horizontal bars actually fit and everything's squared up. And we'll continue to restore the project. Okay, we've started the restoration on the actual vertical bars. You can see on this particular vertical bar, the file work, everything is filed. You can see the heavy pitting that's still in the part. And the reason we file it is because we have to bring up the low spots. Go ahead and flip it over. As you can see on the low spots, you can see the little pick marks on the back side. That's to get everything even and flat. So when we go to file it, it's filed correctly. Some don't need to be brought up, some need to be brought up. You can see the pick marks on the back side. Go ahead and flip it back over, Manny. And then after it gets filed up, filed smooth, then it gets sanded. You can see now all the file work is taken out and as much detail is kept. There is some pitting still by the slots. So the way we repair that is we take it, after it's sanded, we take it and we cyanide strike it. Now you can see that this has got cyanide strike on it, which is a hard copper. The hard copper does no filling. It just protects the base material, so we're able to put acid copper over the top. It also allows us to put lead on it. So you can see the pitting that's still in it. And after we get that done, then we take and we put lead on it over the top of the hard copper. After we get the lead over the top of the hard copper to fill the pits, then we'll have to sand the lead. At the same time, we'll sand the strike back off pretty much all the way because it's only 1/1000th worth of material. We'll restrike it again, and then we add acid copper over the top of that, which is a primer, which will seal the part up. So there are the 3 different steps. We have the filing, the surfacing, the cyanide copper, the lead work, and then we'll follow up with showing you what the acid copper looks like, and then we block the acid copper and continue our process from there. Okay, these grill bars are now back out of acid copper. This particular bar here just got 10 minutes worth of acid copper. In order to make sure that we don't have any blistering problem during the lead process, it's very important that there's no blisters, so we run them for 10 minutes. And after we run them for 10 minutes and inspect them and make sure they're okay, then we load up the amount of copper that is on the part. As you can see in this next one, you can see the robber wire on the end here. The robber wire on the end here is not very big, but then you come over to the one that's got a load of copper on it, and you can see the robber has got a whole bunch of copper and some shredding on it. And what that does is protect that end from getting too much material. Now this one here has got about 1.5 hours worth of copper. Unlike the other ones, only got 10 minutes. You can tell now that they got this one's got quite a bit of copper, and that's going to allow us to start building the material back up that we've taken away to remove the pitting and stuff. As you can see, at least I hope you can see, that there's still pitting in the part because acid copper, unbelief to everybody else, does not fill pits. It actually puddles around the pits. It does fill slightly, but it doesn't jump inside that hole and fill it up. What it does is it puddles around it and starts to build like a mud puddle. The more it rains, the bigger the mud puddle gets. The more copper you put on, the bigger the pit gets. It does somewhat fill the hole, but instead of going in there and filling it up even, it makes the pit quite a bit larger. So the next step we'll have to do is we'll have to block the copper down and see how much of a pit we have left, and then of course apply more copper. This is another one that's running in that same batch, and you can tell that it's only got 10 minutes of copper, and that's what we're trying to make sure that we don't have any blistering. Obviously we ran the first one first as a trial to make sure we didn't have any blistering. We felt confident, so we ran the other 2. That's kind of how we do things here. We mess with one first, make sure we got a system going on that's going to work and everything's going to be fine. Because once you have blistering problems, then you have to grind all the plating back off, and that makes for a long day just to get back where you started before you decide to go into the acid copper bath. That completes this portion of this Cadillac grill restoration project. Okay, we're now starting the dry fit of the grill. Now that Robert has got the grill's outer welded back together, you can see the file work where he's filing the top. Compared to the old, that just makes it flat and straight. You can see all the restored bars that we had in earlier videos are gone back in the top, but now that we got the frame back welded back together, there's a couple of old original ones. Now we have it welded back together, we want to make sure that everything fits correctly, and we're going to go ahead and fit the bottom area part bars also, just to make sure that everything is square and ready to go before we proceed any further with the outer or with the other bars. Okay, we're rounding the corner on this grill job. These are the vertical bars. They were brass, so we gave them a nice surfacing, a nice block. But since they're brass, they have a little zinc content in them. And since they have a little zinc content in them, we don't want a little bit of speckle at the end of the project. So we put just a little bit of acid copper on them. As you can see from the wire, there's not that much material on the actual part compared to the wire the way it started, which that wire is much heavier if we had put a full couple hours on it. These got about 20 minutes, just enough to seal them up and get them ready for another quick color buff, and then they'll be ready for the plating line. Over here, sorry, moving so fast, this is the outside grill surround. It has now been repaired and surfaced, and I don't think I took pictures, but all down in this area here, this all had to be drilled and leaded due to the fact that there was just some breakdown pitting in this heavy cast piece. This is the piece I showed you earlier that was broken about 5 pieces. Now it's all back together, everything's been fit. And it also has been buffed once in copper and then checked and inspected, and just one more short little run of copper on it. As you can tell by the robber, there's not much material put back on it, just enough to seal it back up, and we'll give it one more quick color buff. And the thing will be ready for plating, and we're getting very close to reinstalling all the bars and finishing this grill project up. Okay, here are those grill bars once again. They have a full load of acid copper on them now. You can see the build on the edges. That's why we put robbers down, but in this particular case we're trying to build the material up in order to cover all the lead that we had put on the parts. Now that we've got a good load of acid copper on there, and previously we had checked to make sure that all of our lead work did not blister and we had a good, nice, solid repair, we went ahead and put a nice load of acid copper onto them so we can grind them down for the final time, block them, fit them, open the slots up where the other vertical bars go, and make sure you can see where they're kind of closed up a little bit. We'll get in there and we'll file each individual one. That way the vertical bars will fit correctly, and then these 3 particular bars will be ready to be polished and for final finishes. Okay, grill bars are now polished and getting ready to go for nickel and chrome. We're finally getting through this project. We got just about all of them finished. As you can see, everything's looking really good. All of the nice details, everything has been put back together, everything has been fitted, all the points match. This project's just about behind us. It was a very tough project with every piece having to be leaded. And then if you go over here into the quality assurance room, we're still fighting a few of them. You can see a couple of them here still got had a little bit of a blistering problem, so we had to open them back up, bring them back down to the original material, run them through a special process we call Prep L, and then give them 10 minutes to ensure that we don't have any issues, because we always let things sit for a while when they have that much repair, just because we don't want to have a blister after we get it all put back together and the customer gets it in the car. Everybody's disappointed at that point. These here just need 5 minutes because they got a couple of small die cast spots showing. We're getting closer. Okay, the grill surround has now come out of nickel. It's racked, ready to go, finished up. Thank goodness. It used to be like 5 pieces. Now it is back to 1 piece and plated beautifully. You can see the little robber on the front and the little plugs in the holes, so there's no nickel showing. It's a beautiful thing. Racked on the end, ready to go. Okay, the bars are now coming out of bright nickel and chrome. You can see the robbers on the end. We don't want any material to build on the ends where it meets the outer shell, so we try to robber it off with the wire. That wire takes on the material so the end doesn't take on the material. Same thing on the point. We don't want any material on the point of the part. We want to keep that point nice and sharp so that robber robs the material away while we get the rest of them plated up. There's a few of them here. Okay, now during the detailing process of this grill shell, you can see what the backside of that grill bar looks like with not being painted. You can see all the pitting and everything. And the reason that we paint the backside black like that is so when they stack on top of each other, one doesn't reflect into the other and you don't see that bottom side. So we take the time to paint black on the backside so the detailing is correct. As you can see, that bottom bar, the top bar is not painted, and so the bottom bar is picking up all the ugliness of the upper bar. So we are going to paint it so you can see. Go ahead, Manny, and flip it around. Now when they are painted, as you can see when you look in there, all you see is black, which makes it look so much better. And everything looks clean when you look underneath it. Okay, the final assembly is ready to go. All these vertical bars have now been restored, all laid onto the table. Everything's been numbered so we know how to go back together. This is a very difficult grill. I would say that I'd hope to never do another one, but parts of it was very exciting. Other parts of it was very challenging. I do know if I ever do another one again, it will have to be one that's in better condition than this one was. This one was a challenge. Every bar here was copper and leaded like shown in previous videos. It was quite a project. This is only a partial part of it. We're going to show you the body, the outer surround, and all the hardware in the next video. Okay, and then here's the outer surround for this grill assembly. All back in one piece, painted, detailed, ready to go. Everything's painted black. It doesn't show, just for protection. And then of course here's all the hardware it's going to take to put the thing back together. Several bolts, several nuts. They really knew how to make things back in the early days. There's quite a lot to this program. Okay, and here is the V16 emblem for the same automobile we restored. Put the red paint back in. Everything looks really nice there. All down in the tight 90s, down in the details. All the points are razor sharp. Everything is square and correct like it's supposed to be. And then here we have the emblem for the front of the grill. Staircases are all done very nicely. All the detail is kept very sharp. And then Manny added a little bit more hardware. This is the remaining hardware to put the grill back together. So now we'll start our assembly, get this thing back on its way to Alabama. Okay, assembly is starting to move along on the grill program. The horizontal bars are being installed now. Every piece is like a little jigsaw puzzle, one piece at a time. Men are wearing rubber gloves in order to keep fingerprints and scratches down during the assembly process. Okay, all the horizontal bars have now been installed. All the top horizontal bars went in as individuals, but when we got down to these shorter bars, they all tied together with side plates, and that entire lower unit went in as one piece. Pretty amazing piece of engineering here. Okay, we're going to get that put together, and then it'll be time to do the vertical bars. Also, since the project took so long, it took us probably 9 months to restore this grill. When I was disassembling it, I took a bunch of reference pictures so we could remember how it all went back together. It's always good to take pictures because you think, well, I took it apart, I'll be able to figure out how to put it back together. I've learned through experience that after time, you forget things that are important. You wind up taking things apart 2 or 3 times to figure out how to exactly to put it back together. Let's hope with these reference pictures that won't be the case this time around. Okay, vertical and horizontal bars are finally installed. I tell you what, it was a real project. This thing fit tight. Good golly, was it tight. But you can see how nice it looks now. All those vertical bars, and now you can see why we painted the bottom sides black. You can't see the bottoms anymore. There's no reflection. Everything everything lined up nice. Points are nice. Everything's nice. You can see me. Look at that. You can see me in there taking it with my camera. That is quite a piece of artwork there. No doubt about it. That sucker is pretty. Wow. A couple more small pieces and it's ready to get out of here. Okay, the final completion of the Cadillac grill. Completely assembled now. All cleaned up, detailed. Shop foreman Manny with a smile on his face, awful proud. Thing looks really nice. All the bars are back in it. Everything is tight. Let's see if I can get a little closer here. It's so bright you can't even hardly get a picture of it. It's just an amazing piece of engineering here. By far the most difficult grill that the finishing touch has ever restored. And by far one of the more difficult ones to put together. I'm glad we did all that pre-prep fitting and we put it together a couple of different times during the process, because if not, it would have never gone back together. But what amazing project it was. I'm surely glad that we got it all back together without breaking anything, and everything looks good. One more smile in between the new grill there, Manny. It is a beautiful piece. That is something. Okay, this ends our video for the Finishing Touch Cadillac Grill Restoration Project.